I thought actually I would ask you to do that.
No.
Because you could be like Candy, Randy, Mandy.
Banais.
No.
Lanais.
No.
Well, it's easy on my file names.
Sandy.
It's AK and AC, so it's not that difficult to understand, really. But then I suppose if you go AAG, that's tricky.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, we've been live.
Whoa, remember,
Have
you don't
we?
want to say it right away.
Yeah. We have
No,
been
good
live.
job we didn't. Hey, we've been doing this 9 years. No, 8 years.
8 years.
I got that wrong. Right, I'll start, shall I? This is Literary Roadhouse. One short story once a week. My name's Gerald.
My name is Andy.
Or Sandy, and I'm an ace. I'm just testing it out.
Sandy.
It's Sandy Koufax.
See, it's
This
growing on
week-
you already.
Oi. This week we've been reading The Good Room by Bill Cotter. Not his father's memories are not his own, as you might think from the Electric Literature website. The Good Room by Bill Cotter. If you haven't read the story yet, pause the podcast, go read the story. Link are in the show notes, and come back. Summary. This is a tough story. We follow the narrator, Douglas, as he visits his father in a care home for the first time in 10 years. We learn much of the history of Douglas, his father and mother, his mother's suicide when he was 8, and his father's illegal behaviour with a string of young boys, Douglas included. And we get a sense for how these experiences affected Douglas. We learn that he spent time in a psychiatric hospital, and we see now his struggles with a drink problem. As the introduction says, memory doesn't actually bring you back, nor does it bring the past to life. Memory brings the past forward, even the long dead past. It comes at you like a ghost.
Mm-hmm. I think Douglas is 64, right?
Yeah.
The age, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
63 or something, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, what did you guys think of the story overall? Whoever wants to go first.
I'll go first. I loved it. I think it's a great story. I think it's a fantastic, wonderfully written, great story. So it's not a very good subject matter, of course, but there are, lots of subject matters which aren't very tasteful. And I think the author does a great job of telling us this story in a very clever and very professional way. So yes, I liked it a lot.
Awesome. Andy?
I liked it the opposite of a lot. I felt like there was a lot of things that the author was doing, just all of them weren't good. So okay, first off, like why we dive into the story immediately, it's like fuscus florid. Like, all right, guy. You own a thesaurus, we get it. Okay. But no, just that sort of thing. Everything's very pomp, very look at my fancy words. I've got literature degree. And then I don't know. Like, obviously, the subject matter is like an unpleasant feeling. So if it makes you feel unpleasant, that's the intent. So whatever. I'm not going to dwell on that. But it felt what? It felt like sort of Oscar baity. Like he's like, "Oh, I'm writing this to generate, attention on me for writing such a daring topic." Like, oh, we covered alcoholism and suicide and child sexual abuse. Okay, but and I threw in some neat stuff about memory, but was there anything that we gained? Was there any unique insight? I don't think so. I don't think there was any unique insight. I think we were just tramping around like a kid in a series of puddles with a giant thesaurus going, hey, look at me. I didn't like it.
Okay, so if I were to summarize your complaint, it's trauma porn.
Yes, trauma porn with thesaurus.
Fancy. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm honestly probably closer to Andy. I think I agree with a lot of what Andy said, honestly. The thesaurus stuff didn't bother me as much, though I did also note it and was like, okay.
It kind of hit hard like right at the beginning. I didn't notice it as much once the story got going, but like in the first paragraph, we're like, okay, way to set the tone. You're fancy.
You know what it is? It does it reminds you of the author because you don't believe that Douglas is a person who speaks this way, which is fine. Like it doesn't have to be close third in the voice of Douglas. You can have a narrator voice here, but it reminds you of the author.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's specifically what was going on the whole time I was reading. I was very aware of the author all throughout. I was like, oh, this is what the author is doing. And that's what made it feel more like trauma porn than anything else.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. At no point do you forget the author and think about the author. So it's not immersive in that way where you're just following Douglas's story.
And like, okay, maybe you don't want to be immersed.
Yeah. Sure.
I completely disagree. I completely and violently disagree. That
Okay, get violent.
Yeah.
Go for
I
it.
will. Violent with words and stuff. Because I think the nature of anything pornographic is to celebrate the content, celebrate the shock value of the pornographic content. And I really don't think he does that here. I think it's brought forward in a very subtle way. I think it's very yes, the text is quite florid. Annie's point is I think is very good. We're not close thirds, so I can't imagine Douglas talking like this. But I definitely sort of caught onto a narrator's voice. I loved the language. I loved the writing. I thought it was really well done, and I think that there's some great, and like the fact that he was he spent time in psychiatric hospitals was just very subtly brought in. I thought that was very good, and then we then get to understand why he spent time there. I just there was so many like the ugly stretch of dry county Texas between Abilene and nowhere. I just really nice ideas, nice writing. I think he did the alcoholic stuff quite good, and the promises that Douglas made to himself. The only drink was in the neck. I think that's I've not heard that before, and I think that's a very sort of clever thing. And so I really enjoyed it, and yes, it's the subject matter isn't the point of the story. The subject matter is in the background because it is brought forward through the father's memories and through his telling of it, and him getting the children's names mixed up and things like that. Yeah, I still like it.
Okay, so you're saying that trauma isn't the point of the story. So for you, the point of the story is what exactly, if you had to pinpoint?
The point of the story is to show the relationship between the father and the boy, and probably the reason why the relationship is so strained and is so difficult is due to what happened to the boy when he was much younger. So I think that's the point of the story, that the historical nature of the abuse and the history of the father, and the suicide of the mother, and why and the father justifying his behavior to himself. It's just how I am. There's nothing wrong with it, although it's probably illegal. I don't know. I really think that was done really well.
Mhm. I'd agree with you that the alcoholism parts of it were the best parts. Those to me felt the most true. I like the way that they were drawn. Um, and I think that's when I was paying attention to Doug more than the author for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, those parts just seemed better fleshed out. And there were a lot of sentences and turns of phrase that I really liked, moments that were captured in very specific ways. I think where it starts to feel a bit trauma porny is while I agree with Gerald that the the childhood sexual abuse isn't necessarily like
Right. It's not like
super in your
forefronted.
Mhm.
Well, it's
What?
not like foregrounded. It's not.
Right. It's not foregrounded and it's not like snuff, right? Like he's not doing that. He's not like
Mhm.
just like giving this to you in like a painful snuffish kind of way just to like make he's not using the actual act itself to make you feel bad. It does, I guess, in some ways kind of feel like there's something kind of shorthand about it maybe, and we've talked about this before, like when you use a particular trauma, even if it's in the background, where it's like where it just feels like this is supposed to get me to understand something about this dynamic in a very quick way, which is fine. We use shorthand stuff all the time, but then now I don't know what to do with that. I guess the alcoholism is a big part of it, and that's the best part of it probably, like the way the specificity with which it's drawn, which you don't get as much with the other stuff. Even with the suicide, really. The suicide's just sort of mentioned, but it's, you know, yeah.
Because that's an event that happened in the past, and
Mhm.
what you're looking at is the effect on those historic events on Douglas now, and how he behaves now. And I think it's probably to try and bring some understanding to us, the reader, that a person's behavior may not be within his control, his or her control, and it may have a historical catalyst.
Yeah, but like, okay, here's where I have issue though. If that's the point, then like, duh, like, I'm going to write this story to really highlight and draw attention to the fact that childhood traumas can have an effect on adults and their behavior later in life. Do we not know that yet? Like,
Yeah, though I guess with in a short format, you're allowed to draw a portrait of something. Like that's part of the exercise. And this is a much older person, so there's this thing where it's like how alive that right like when he's in the room alone and he see the door and the glass in I did love that doorknob bit actually.
Yes.
That
see,
when
I
he's
thought it was
throwing.
like real contrived by that point, but like,
Wow.
it was active. It was alive. But at that point, I was already like, okay,
You were
I'm
done
gonna
by
do
that.
the
Yeah, I
doorknob.
did, but that's a good word to use. It was active. At that point, I'm focusing on the story and focusing
Mhm.
less on the author, which is why I like the doorknob bit. And then the closest you get to something that might border snuff, but it isn't, is that little detail about the feeling the felt on his cheek. Like that's the closest you get to any specificity, but that's that memory becoming really sharp out of nowhere at age 64. So like I think that's the portrait that's being drawn. And you're allowed to do that in a short format, basically. I don't think you can do a novel version of this because it would definitely be too much.
Yeah.
But I don't know to what end. Like, what is the? That's where I'm struggling. I was like, okay, all right, you did that.
Does it have to have an end, a point? Does there can you not just have a story which entertains?
Yeah, but this failed. This failed to entertain me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know.
From a reading point of view, I think you got to
Well, right, you
got to
like
be
some of the
careful.
sentences and
Yeah, and the word entertainment is perhaps
right.
you have to be careful with that. But I certainly appreciated the story, and I enjoyed reading it. I enjoyed reading the story. I think he did a good job.
I think that's fair to say. He did a good job at what he set out to do.
Yes.
But I don't think that what he set out to do was fundamentally worthy of endeavor.
And your earlier comments sort of implied that you thought he was being deliberately florid and flowery in his and deliberately creating a story to annoy you, basically.
To annoy me specifically.
Specifically, yes.
Yeah. I think you also resent provocation for provocation's sake, and there's aspects of that. It can feel that way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Provocation for provocation's sake is very well put. Thank you for helping me clarify that in my mind. Because that's what I'm trying to get at. And like, okay, but what are you doing with it? What new insight do you bring? What was your point? It seems like just to like share it.
Yeah. I do think that's hard to do as well, right? Where it's like we consume so much and there's so much out there where it's just like, okay, for us, it feels like we know this. It doesn't go away when you're 64. It's still there. You still have these resentments. Your father's dying and you're just like, I don't know, here's my credit card, deal with it. I don't want to.
Yeah.
And that all makes sense. And it's like, well, does an individual author not get to write that even if we've seen it before, unless they bring something new? Because the practice of doing it anyway is valuable for that author, and then putting it out there and having people react to it. So it's like, like it's a bit, yeah.
But I guess bringing something new to it is what would elevate it. That's what would make it fantastic. And clearly this Fuscus author wants to elevate things.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair, right? Like you don't have to resent the exercise if it's just doing well or serviceably a thing that we already know or have seen. But if you really want that, like, whoa, you do need to find that new thing. Though the descriptions of alcoholism I thought were very good.
Yeah, no, you got a good point. And that's when it was most active also, right? When we were having the memories turn real sharp with the doorknob, and the alcoholism is a result of his traumas, but it's the thing he's doing now. It's not something about his memories. That's
yeah. And with the alcoholism, it's not necessarily that there's anything new about the alcoholism, but it's the specificity that makes it feel alive. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I don't know whether the author has experience of this, but I think the way he showed the alcoholism was very good. Perhaps in some parts it was maybe a little. I could accept it's maybe a little bit overdone, because it was pretty constant and repeated. But having said that, I like some of the things, like the bit that I read out is only drinking what's in the neck, and the view of the guy in the trailer as it went past, and I thought that was so really well done. If I had to criticize, I'd probably say there was probably too much on the alcoholism, but it didn't occur to me at the time. It didn't seem out of place.
Yeah. There was two moments with reflections as well. The side of the trailer, the chrome trailer, and then the glass hutch at home when he's seeing Donna's reflection when she comes home and they're doing their thing where they're just like not acknowledging that he's definitely drunk. Also, after the story, I found myself like thinking about Helga and Donna's decisions.
And specifically, like, they obviously both knew, and they both didn't do anything to protect Doug.
Well, so so in Helga's case,
right,
the arcade is the family livelihood. Without it, it sounds like they'd probably be pretty destitute. I don't think arcades are high margin businesses. So, I think in her mind, it's like, here's this horrible thing, and she doesn't even know what to do, so she opts for suicide. Not a great choice, but you can see how she got there. Donna ends up banning the father, but at no point is she like, "Hey, Doug, hard conversation. I just want to know." Like, it's interesting, but it also says a lot about Donna that she's not that person. There's a lot of people out there that would not ask. It's like, if you didn't tell me, I'm not going to ask, and we're just going to pretend we both don't know. So there's that line where like Doug's like, he might one day tell Donna the full story, and it's like, Donna suspects. Donna knows
Yeah.
why Helga committed suicide. Donna knows why you drink a lot. Donna knows why you were in asylum. It all became very clear to her. Yeah. And what really sucks about Helga's choice is just how many kids continue to be abused for decades.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting that the first words that Donna says to Douglas when he gets home after the death, did he mention Albie again? So I think she knows, and maybe she's. I suspect it's very difficult to, if someone's locked a part of their history away, it must be really difficult to get them to talk about it. So maybe she had tried, and maybe this is the way of trying to get Douglas to open up. Did he mention Albie just as a sort of introduction? Why was Albie so important, and all that? Maybe.
Yeah.
The
I
parts
also-
with Donna were like my favorite parts of the story. There's just so little.
Mhm. Yeah. Also, it's interesting that both of them had to see it to believe it. Helga and Donna. How do you not
Mhm.
suspect?
Yes.
Man disappears one-on-one with kids regularly into a back room. Like,
With like a crazy steel door.
yeah. And really for no reason. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there isn't even a good pretense of why this is happening. Because it's a second room behind the room with the pool room. Like, like there isn't even a story here for why. There's no alibi.
And we know that there is a latch on the door that should keep it shut,
Right.
which didn't work on this one occasion. So again, I think it's a really clever way of painting the picture, but in a subtle way. I think, to me anyway, I think it's quite specific in some respects, and about the backstory, but I think it's released in quite a sort of an accomplished way, I think, to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else we want to say?
Nope.
Okay. Are we ready to rate?
I think Andy's said quite enough on this.
But I appreciate it because Doug Deeb explained why.
Yeah.
Doug Deep.
Yeah.
Like the character's name is Douglas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You see, you felt you had to explain that, whereas the author wouldn't have explained that because we got it.
But that's what makes it funnier. Jokes are always funnier when you explain them at length.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the person telling the joke.
All right. So what are we rating?
Rate this puppy 6 for me.
Wow.
Boom. 6.
You're coming in real strong.
Yeah.
I had thought you'd give it a 5. Okay. You're allowed to do what you're going to do.
I thought this morning, when I read it, especially when I read it a second time, I thought this is very well done, really cleverly done. And it's a sort of complete story. So, yeah, boom, 6 for me.
Okay. And for people who are new, 6 is our highest. So 1 to 6, because I don't know why.
Bradburys.
Yeah.
6 Bradburys.
That's right. Andy?
Not blackberries or redberries or.
I thought about this a lot. And I think it's important that if you're going to take on the subject matter that this does, you try and elevate it more. So I'm going to give it a 1.
All right,
Even
and I'm
though
coming
there
in at
were
a
parts
3.
that were effective.
We got a full spread. 6, 1, and 3. Okay.
Wow. Yeah,
I like when we're not all agreeing.
I think, and I like the fact that after all this time, we have respect for each other's opinions, so we're not going to get all antsy about it and argue
I
or
don't know. You
anything.
said you were going to get violent and then you didn't, so now I feel a little misled.
Yeah. Well, you know, as violent as I ever get, I'm a peace-loving kind of guy.
Yeah.
Britishly violent.
Yeah.
Historically
Well,
speaking, it's
Yeah,
just
I was gonna
violent.
say.
yeah. We can do our bit at times.
All right. Andy, what are we reading next week?
Oh, that's a great question. Next week, we're reading a story, and the story has a title and it has an author. Now, the
Uh-huh.
author
Yeah.
is Renan Bernardo.
Right.
And the title, as we say it here, where I come from, is A Short Biography of a Conscious Chair.
Okay. I'm sure people totally grab that. Like that was not
I mean,
at all.
there's going to be like a link. They should like click.
There
the
will
link.
be a link, yes. A short
Oh.
biography of a conscious chair by Renan Bernardo, and there is a link somewhere. Okay. But before you go, share pleasant childhood stories of arcades, trauma-free, in our Facebook discussion group, the Literary Roadhouse Readers. And instead of drinking yourself into a numbing stupor, consider processing your feelings with friends. Tell your friends about our show, leave a review on iTunes, and support our podcast on patreon.com/Literary Roadhouse. Every bit helps. And as always, share this podcast with your Chrome reflection. Until next time, read a good story.